For Monday night at Viejas Arena, which is a good segue, Mark Zeigler has done such a good job over the years covering San Diego State basketball. Not much of an offseason with the team playing into April this past season. And you got to turn your
problems.
Mic on. Yeah, exactly. And now basketball, remarkably, is back with the regular season opener Monday night at Viejas Arena. So, Mark, we always appreciate your time here on Jon and Jim. Let's start with this past Monday, the exhibition against San Marcos. I mean, it's a new team. You got a lot of important pieces back, but this is a completely new team. So what were your impressions of what you saw in an exhibition against San Marcos Monday?
Yeah, and that's what exhibitions are for. You're supposed to find out who can do what and give the guys a chance to do it in front of people in the stands, and that can't be overstated. It's hard to take anything away from those games. I've seen them play really poorly and then have a great season. I've seen them play just really well, and everyone thought it was going to be easy, and come out in the opener and struggle. So I think we'll have to really wait until Monday night to get a lot of our answers.
Is there an update on the health of Darion?
I think it's just going to be day to day, probably through the beginning of the season. I know he's been improving. They didn't practice today, but it's been 3.5 weeks since he's been in a live practice, and the opener's on Monday. So even if he does make it back, I'm not sure what kind of shape he's going to be in and what how effective he's going to be. Basketball is weird. Sometimes when you haven't, and I can speak from personal experience, sometimes when you haven't shot and done anything for a while, you come out there with no expectations and light it up. But sometimes, the fatigue gets to your legs and you can't shoot. So, I wouldn't expect big minutes from him and big things from him probably for a couple weeks into the season.
Mark Zeigler from the UT is with us. So what's that going to mean for Brian Dutcher in terms of his starting lineup and in terms of what he plans to do at point guard?
Well, it puts a lot of the burden on Lamont Butler. They're both kind of point guards. It's funny when you ask each of them who's the point guard, they kind of point to the other guy. I think Darren Trammell is probably a little bit better coming off ball screens. And I would have expected him to see him on the ball a little bit more this season. Without him, obviously, that puts the burden on Lamont Butler. He's going to play heavier minutes. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. And he's a high energy guy who plays really hard defense, and he's going to have to be able to carry that energy through, 30, 35 minutes of a game. The backup point right now is going to be Miles Bird, who's, he played 4 games last year, shut it down pretty early. Really basically a freshman. I mean, this is basically his true freshman year. He almost had to wipe out last year. And he's very exciting, very capable, but he also has had a lot of turnovers, both in practice and in the scrimmage and the exhibition. So that's going to be a concern with him at the point, but he's certainly capable and an exciting player. And as the season goes on, I think he's just going to improve.
What is the biggest question mark with this team? Is it that you just said, or is there something else?
I'm preparing a story for Sunday on it, and I was thinking a lot about what are sort of the questions going into the season. And, one of them is just from a mental standpoint, there is no manual, particularly in this program and many programs, most programs, almost all programs, of how do you react after going to the Final Four or national championship game.
Right.
Everything changes, externally. And I think what they try to do is keep everything the same inside the gym. But it's hard to ignore this stuff. I mean, they're going to raise a banner that says Final Four on it on Monday night before the game. I mean, it's going to be emotional. It's going to be exciting. Thoughts are going to go back to last April. And that's great. But, make our season tonight in one game to take these guys out. And so I think that's going to be one of the issues. I think one of the other issues is that, last year you had 9 guys. You knew who the 9 were. It was going to be a 9-man rotation. You knew who the starters were going to be. You knew who was coming off the bench. Everyone knew their role. They were all veterans. They played in big games. They knew what to do, and they were healthy. This year, you're not as healthy, and you've got a very, very young bench with sophomores who barely played last year, or freshmen who haven't played at all, or transfers who haven't played at this level at all. And it's going to take time to get those guys integrated. The problem is we don't have a schedule that's conducive to integrating and blooding guys early. I mean, you're going to be in a lot of tight games. Almost every game is going to be close, I think. You might be behind in some games. You're going to go and experiment with a freshman or sophomore in those situations. I don't know. And it's a question that Brian Dutcher's going to have to probably answer on the fly, but that's going to be a big issue and a thing to watch early in the season.
Mark Zeigler covers the Aztecs men's basketball program with the Union-Tribune. He's with us right now on Jon and Jim. So, Mark, as we know, typically college basketball is predicated by guard play, but then you get to like the highest levels, like the NCAA tournament, and you're seeing guys like Nathan Mensah and Ryan Kalkbrenner and all the Alabama centers and the UConn centers. Well, San Diego State last year was not running their offense through their center or even through their forwards, but this year, Jaden LeDee, who had a huge second half last year and then NCAA tournament. I mean, is the assumption that the offense is running through Jaden, and how do you expect that to look?
Well, I think he's going to be the leading scorer. I think he's going to lead rebounder. I think he's going to be a player of the year candidate in the Mountain West. He's kind of on the trajectory that I've seen in both practice and in scrimmages and, in exhibitions, all that. But I will say this. I think they're a much more talented offensive team than last year. And they're going to rely on their offense to win games more than they did last year. Last year, they just lock people up and didn't have their offense to get by. When they got into late clock situations or a situation where they needed a basket, they went to Matt Bradley, incredibly talented at creating his own shot, didn't need a ball screen, didn't need a rub off screen. He could just get the ball in isolation and go at somebody. But that really slows down the rhythm of an offense, and that's the price you pay. This year, I think they're going to have much more flow. I even saw a little bit of the position against San Marcos. The ball was moving side to side, moving a lot, and that means all five guys are options. I think Jalen LeDee is going to be option number one, and Lamont Butler might be option 1A. But beyond that, Reese Waters is an option. Jay Powell off the bench can create his own shot. Michael Harris has shown ability to hit threes and also get to the basket and get fouled and get to the line. I mean, Darren Trammell, you saw what he could do in the tournament last year in the SEC of the South region. So I just think there's going to be a lot more options in that regard, and it won't just be dominated by one guy. Although I think Jalen LeDee will get a lot of points just because he'll still rebound shots and put them back up and get fouled.
Cal State Fullerton on Monday night. What kind of challenge does that team, pose to the Aztecs?
Well, this is why I think it's a really dangerous game. I mean, and obviously all there's no injuries to the unknown. Teams going to play, but you've got to add the additional layer of unveiling and the emotions that come with that. You have a team in Conference State Fullerton. Usually, this is a team you're going to get a team enough class or some high game of team that's never been here before, doesn't know what to expect, gets intimidated by the crowd. This is a team that was here last year and played them tight last year. Is not going to be intimidated, and I think even motivated when they see the unveiling. And they're a very good team. A little bit more size than they've had in the past. I'm hearing that they beat USF in a closed door scrimmage again. Take some of those points. Then USF went and handled USC. So I think they're pretty good, and I'm looking at this as, I think almost every game of their Division I opponents in the preseason is going to be a tight game and a game that could go down the last 5 minutes. I think this is going to be another one. I don't think fans are going to expect that, and it'd be a pleasant surprise, I think, for fans and coaches if they can handle them away early. But I don't think so. I think it's going to be a really, really tight, tough game, and I don't want to say they're going to lose, but I think it's certainly a plus.
Mark, you've been, at Viejas Arena for years and years covering San Diego State. You've seen some incredible atmospheres. And again, this opponent isn't the biggest opponent San Diego State has ever played, but you consider the circumstance back home basically for the first time since the NCAA tournament. Sure, there was an exhibition game, but what do you expect this atmosphere to be like? Is this going to be like an unrivaled atmosphere Monday night at Viejas?
I don't know. It's never been anything like this. I
Right.
think it will be. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement. I think that roar when they unveil the banner is going to be a really proud moment for the team, but also for the fans. Fans in San Diego have put up with a lot of bad teams. The Aztecs have been one of the few exceptions. But through the years, through the decades, through the half century, not a lot of winning has gone on in that level. And in some respects, it's more impressive than making a World Series or Super Bowl. There's 30 odd teams in those leagues. Fewer actually, I think, when they did it. And in Division I basketball, there's 350 odd teams, all trying to do the same thing. Yes, some are as resourced as others, but even among the resource group, there's 75 to 100 that have the resources to make that kind of run. That's really impressive when you make it there into the final two. And I think people are going to be super proud and excited. I think that's what's going to end in the end, carry them on Monday night, is just that energy in the crowd that's not going to allow them to lose. But it's you watch a lot of these ring nights in the NBA, and coaches tell you they're scared to death of ring nights. And it's the same sort of deal because you're thinking about last year, the time when you're supposed to be thinking about the task at hand. And it's human nature, it's really hard to separate the two. So I think there'll be some ups and downs in games because of that and because they've never been through before.
I think Jaden LeDee said post game Monday, "Hey, what are your expectations for ring night?" He said, "Well, it's going to be a lot better of a memory if we win the game on Monday night."
You don't want to take it out.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, absolutely. Mark, we're looking forward to Monday. We'll see you out at Viejas Arena. Thanks for taking the time for us, and appreciate your coverage of Aztecs basketball.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, Mark Zeigler from the Union-Tribune.